Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Lemnisk podcast, where we speak with industry leading marketing experts and practitioners about all things marketing, data, and technology. I'm Subra Krishnan, your host and the co founder and CEO of Lemnisk. I'm incredibly excited today to be speaking with Veetika Deoras, Senior Vice President for Brands and Marketing at the Indian Hotels Company Limited. Quick introduction to Veetika. Veetika is a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of cross-sectoral experience across hospitality, retail, financial services, telco, and consumer goods. Prior to her role at IHCL, she's worked in various companies, a Tata company, Tata Capital, Starbucks, where she's led teams across digital strategy, data analytics, business planning, brand and marketing management, and PR. In her current role, she is responsible for strategically managing all the marquee brands in the IHCL portfolio, including Taj, recognized as the world's strongest hotel brand 2024 and India's strongest brand in 2024 by Brand Finance. She is also responsible for the various marketing initiatives, launching brands, digital strategy, consumer strategy, campaigns, the loyalty programs, and all other membership programs of IHCL. She is a Fulbright Fellow from Carnegie Mellon University Tepper School of Business, and her work has won many awards and shortlists, including the prestigious Cannes. She's a great advocate of diversity and something that we'll hopefully touch upon today, and is passionate about mentoring women to help them achieve their potential. She loves the outdoors and is an avid sports person. Vitika, a very, very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Subra. It's always an honor and a privilege to have these conversations because 20 minutes of conversation can yield so much of food for thought that probably reading tons and tons of books would do. So always love conversing with people who um, are at the cusp of a lot of paradigm shift and are torchbearers in terms of bringing change to the industry. So lovely to speak to you, and thank you for speaking to me. So
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean that's a great place to start. You used paradigm shift, and I think it's fair to say, Vitika, that if you look at the last 20-25 years that we've been around in the industry, it's fair to say that there have been humongous shifts in the marketing landscape. So I think it would be great. This is a great place to start, where we maybe talk about your own professional journey, and as you go through the journey, what do you believe are some of the big kind of paradigm shifts that have happened in the marketing landscape, and how they're shaping the industry today?
So I've done a little over 2 decades, Subra, and I can tell you the space has changed completely. The good news is that it's changed for the better. Uh, if I was to go back in time and if I was to talk about that time to a lot of my new joinees, they'd probably not even be able to relate to it. But from the traditional marketing days to today's extremely real time, one is to one precision marketing, I think marketing has come a long, long way. Uh, I remember a lot of our life during those days used to revolve around designing TV campaigns, designing print campaigns, out of home adapts. And then, of course, for personalized or one is to one marketing, we would land up doing a lot of direct marketing. From there to today, when everything is hyper personalized, everything is near real time, everything is completely customized for the customer, and it's not even segments, but it is actually individual customers. I think we've come a long, long way. The whole advent and growth of digital that we have seen in the last almost 2 decades has been phenomenal, and it's changed the landscape completely. So that clearly is the first change that one has seen. Segueing into, of course, the second one, which this advent has come with, is complete disruption that digital media has caused. And I'm not using disruption as a negative word at all. For me, this has been disruption where there's been a little bit of change of hands in terms of power, where today the customer has more power in terms of what marketing messaging he wants to see, when he wants to see it, how he wants to see it. And I think that's a great thing to happen, and augurs very, very well for brands like the brands that I've worked with across Tata Group and, of course, Indian Hotels and Taj, because we as brands have always been conscientious about making sure that wherever the power lies, it must be respected and must not be abused. So therefore, we are very happy to have this digital disruption where the power is truly moved into the hands of the consumer. He or she decides what to say, when to say. Linked to that, of course, is this whole rise that we have seen of technology and marketing coming together. I think that's been very, very exciting. And it's a very oddball combination, if I may use that word, because marketing has always been assumed to be more right brain, and technology is, of course, quintessentially assumed to be as left brain. So it's almost sitting in this space of confluence, which is, let me also say, which is extremely challenging. But if you're able to crack it, then it's extremely rewarding at the same time. Um, Everyone talks about data as being the new currency, and therefore, of course, that is the fourth shift that we are seeing. There's tons of data being generated every second. It's important, crucial, and required to track some of that data and also use it in a manner which is extremely guest centric. But lots of stuff happening in the data space. I think marketers today need to be extremely strategic and agile in terms of what they want to pick, what they can use, which is where permissions and all come in. And then, of course, how should they be using it towards the right purpose? So, yes, I think these are some big changes that have happened. Outside of that, of course, I think brand building has become something which is always happening. From me sending a message to my consumer and my consumer reacting to it. Today, I may not even send a message, and it could be two consumers, or actually even non-consumers, who could be talking about our brands and building or enhancing the equity of a brand, or the reverse. So yes, I think it's always on. It's continuous, and life's really moved away from having quarterly plans and then executing them and then waiting for the next quarter to unfold. I think it's each day brings a lot of opportunities to build your brand effectively and market it effectively, and at the same time, a lot of challenges. So massive shifts that have happened. The good part is that I think the role of a CMO has uh, kind of also moved to becoming a little bit of a strategy officer. Because if businesses are built for consumers, and if marketers are closest to the consumer and they understand him or her extremely well, then yes, they are occupying a very critical and a nodal place for any organization, if they're able to marry the left and the right. So I think there is a shift in terms of the marketing team also becoming quasi strategy teams. So yes, those are the first 4 or 5 things that come to my mind at random.
Fantastic. So essentially, to quickly summarize, a move from offline and direct to maybe real time and more personalized, the disruption in digital media, you spoke about that, the overall rise in technology and marketing, adjacent probably to an explosion in consumer data and what you have available. And of course, all of this has also meant, like you rightly pointed out, that the role of the CMO itself is sort of shifting more towards becoming a strategy officer. Fantastic. I think all of this, Vitika, is happening probably adjacent and in parallel to, if we take the example of IHCL, the consumers themselves changing as well, right? I think there's been a massive, massive change in guest expectations as well. So, how do you sort of look at this shift and what it means for how you now start reaching out to them?
Um, I think the first one is clearly co-creation. I think today consumers do like to co-create with marketers quite a bit. I remember there used to be a few exemplary examples 10 years back where co-creation was big, whether it's in terms of value propositions or product design. And today it's become constant co-creation. There are insights that they are, or there are insights that they're leaving behind, and it is up to the marketer to capture them and make sure they're able to give back to the consumer what he's trying to say, either directly or indirectly. So there's constant co-creation of marketing messages and value propositions that's happening. The other bit, which I briefly touched upon, is the fact that it is always on, it's a continuous game. And interestingly, the formats have moved on as well. So it's no longer static, it's extremely real time. And I think this is also where AI kind of comes in between,
Yeah.
where there is so much happening in the AI space that today there is a lot more that we as marketers can also do in terms of trying to engage with customers than we could hitherto. So there is a heavy usage of AI that we are seeing in terms of designing our experiences. Third is, of course, in terms of trends that we are seeing. So materialistic and very, very relevant to Indian hotels and Taj. There is a massive shift from moving away from materialistic luxury to what we call experiential luxury, or a
Right.
phrase that we use quite often, which is it's no longer about just the value of money, but it's about value of time. The economy is going through a good phase, and therefore we do have the growing middle class, and our pyramid is not so thin at the top, which is good for the economy. But what this also means is that it's no longer just a question of where I want to spend my money. It's become a question of where I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
So a lot of experiential luxury is emerging, which is interesting. When we talk about other trends in terms of co-creating with consumers, sustainability is becoming a big one. Attention span is dwindling, so therefore, I think a lot of it is now moving from what we used to earlier call reach
Yeah.
um, to actually what we call relevance.
Yeah.
So now it's not just about how many people we are able to reach out to, but it's actually about how relevant our communication is,
Yeah.
and what are they able to take out of it, and whether it's useful for them or not. Omni-channel, I think that's another thing which is hugely impacting how we structure experiences for our customers. So if it was, I remember it was offline, and then it was online, and then it was digital, and now it's just become this complete jamboree of I could be switching touch points within seconds. I could be on your social media channel right now, and I could actually get out of my car and walk into your retail outlet. So it's completely unlike distinct siloed channels. It's completely integrated now, which means that we obviously need to be able to churn out similar experiences across channels. So a lot of orchestration on that front. Yeah, well, these are a few that come to my mind.
No, I think that's a very valid point you brought up, especially, I do want to pick your brain on the co-creation bit a little bit, and sort of, can you talk maybe about one or two examples of how you think it could be approached, or what you might have already done towards that? I just, because that sounded so interesting. And then I'll come to the latter half of your question about always on, and sort of how people are omni-channel today. I would want to come back to that, but just want to take a step back and go back to co-creation. So, what are some sort of thoughts you have on how to make this effective?
So, when we talk about co-creation, I'm going to take the liberty of patting both Indian hotels and Taj and the hospitality industry a little bit on this. I think we are one of the few industries who've been co-creating from eons. So from the time the guest walks in to any of our hotels or any of our restaurants, to the time that he or she walks out, every little touch point is a co-creation. The first co-creation, frankly, happens when the doorman opens the door and he does a quick assessment of what language you would want to be spoken to,
Mm,
and quickly shifts gears and decides to do a namaste or a good morning.
mm,
So I think for us, co-creation is always been there, and it's almost at the core of our existence. We've always believed that Taj is a brand. Uh, has this quintessential signature warmth, which emanates from the fact that we are able to co create with the consumer, and we are able to work both on stated and unstated needs or demands. I think what's happened today is that, by the way, we did a little bit of a study in terms of how many touch points do we get when a guest comes to stay with us. And even when we talk about a guest staying with us for 24 hours, there are over 1,000 touch points that we discovered.
Wow, that's
So it is, and it's a very high touch industry.
yeah,
So I think co-creation has always been at the core for us. What's happened now is that the co-creation has moved into a lot of other channels and other digital and online channels as well.
yeah,
So very simple things like, and just to give you a few examples that we're working on, when you open our app inside, let's say a Taj Hotel, vis-a-vis a Vivanta or a Ginger Hotel, we might be able to change the skin for you. If you are opening the mobile app during morning hours or late at night, we may be able to give you a very different feel of the app depending on what time of day it is at the location you're at. So, I'm just giving you very small examples because I think the big ones are, of course, extremely threshold and hygiene today. So, can I co-create an offer for you? Yes, of course, I must. Can I co-create an itinerary for you? Yes, of course, I must. But even beyond that, when there are these completely micro moments, even those are getting co-created.
So I think which sort of, and that's these are extremely good examples, by the way. A lot of insight back there for whoever is listening in. Which brings me to the next question, which is when you talk of creating, co-creating these kinds of rich, extremely meaningful, personalized, kind of moments of truth, if you will. Essentially, it has to stem from a really deep understanding of your guest and their behavior across all of these thousand odd sort of interactions that they're likely to have. And here we come back to omni-channel. Here we come back to the kind of different touch points that they reach you on. So I guess in some sense, it's important to really understand your customer holistically. So how, and that's very foundational, I would say, just having this type of deep guest behavior understanding across these touch points. So what's sort of your approach to making this happen, and what are some kind of maybe mental frameworks you have to make this happen?
So, we are a high touch industry which is embracing digital tech, AI, and data in a big way. So for us, there is a lot of tacit knowledge and information that lies. At the same time, there is a lot of digital data and information that lies with us. I think that the trick for us or the secret sauce for us is when we're able to marry the two. So, I've worked across multiple industries, and all industries really pride themselves on focus groups and talking to the customer and direct feedback. Um, Indian Hotels has had a practice of a morning meeting forever.
Right.
50, 60, 70. I mean, I wouldn't even put a number behind it, but for those many number of years, which basically means every day the senior leadership team of the hotel sits, looks at customer feedback a day before, tries to predict what the customers checking in that day would need, and then gets into an action plan. It doesn't get more kosher than that. It doesn't get more rigorous like than that. But of course, the challenge that we face is that it's sometimes tacit. And therefore, how do we actually institutionalize this information so that it can be used for one-to-one personalization, or it can be used on an aggregate scale to try and develop mass propositions? So that's something one always works on. The other bit is in terms of just capturing and doing a lot of listening in the digital space. I'm also going to talk about one thing, which is very close to us at Indian Hotels, and as well as to me as a data and a marketing practitioner, which is the discretion that we need to exercise.
Absolutely, absolutely, so important. Yeah.
Absolutely, and which is why there are certain things that will be used on a one-to-one basis, and there are probably 90% of the things that we use are on a one-to-one personalization. Yeah. And probably 10% is what lands up going into the aggregation space. Because it's very important for us to manage that discretion and the privacy aspect. And therefore, even when we design our systems, there are a lot of things which we know are tacit, and we are okay with them being tacit. we probably do not want to institutionalize
Very,
them.
I fully agree with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yes, a lot of discretion, and we are actually exposed to tons and tons of data, and therefore we're very cautious and proud of the fact that we apply that discretion.
And I think we spoke about, in one of our earlier conferences, we were speaking about this industry as well. Not always does, the guest expect every data point about him or her to be used in a one-to-one personalized way, right? Sometimes, aggregation is definitely the way to go, right? So I'm sure you've seen. So how do you sort of, how did you reach this balance, if you will, right? I'm sure it has come out of experimentation, but probably it also comes from the tacit aspect of knowing that your guests so deeply that you know, or you have an intuitive understanding of what you believe they will want to be used and what not to be used. So how do you do this? How do you balance this, and achieve just the right mix?
I think the first thing is that we need to have trust at the center of it all.
Yeah.
So trust first and data second, I think is something which Indian hotels, for that matter, is kind of ingrained,
Mm.
and therefore it starts with this whole promise that promise, like any promise, goes far beyond systems and the written piece, and it just becomes an inherent part of your DNA and gets translated every time.
Yeah.
So I think it begins with a trust first, data second philosophy. Um, then, of course, comes the systems and the structure that you put in place to make sure that that philosophy is adhered to. And that's where your governance structure or your privacy structures or your, if I may use a very strong word, data ethics kind of come into place. Um, then, of course, comes the third part of it, which is, in terms of whether it's collection of data or whether it's storage of data, it, of course, needs to come with a lot of consent. So just because I know something about you doesn't mean that I'm allowed to store it or use it. And I'll give you a very interesting example.
Yeah.
So the other day I was talking to a customer and she was actually saying that, I go to your spas. Why do I have to fill the form every time I go to a spa? Don't you by now know my name and what ailments I suffer from or what medication I take or what allergies I have? And our response was, of course, we know, but we don't want to pass it on from one spa to the other unless you give us your explicit consent. So hypothetically, if I'm suffering from an ailment and my neighborhood hotel spa knows it, I don't want to pass that information to, let's say, some one of our hotels in Bangalore.
Yeah.
So therefore, sometimes it's interesting where the guest comes back and says that why aren't you storing this information and using it? Why are you making me fill the form again and again? But I think that's where ethics and that's where the philosophy comes in, where we genuinely empower the guest to decide what can be stored, what can be shared. Oh, yeah, I guess these are the first three, four things that come to my mind. And of course, I think the another one very important, again, which is a little bit of a purpose slash philosophy piece, is what are you using the data for? Are you genuinely using the data to, and that kind of becomes a little bit of an acid test. That are you genuinely using this data to enhance the guest experience, uh, or are you putting that data
Yeah.
analytics to some other objective?
What is the incremental value of using that data point, and is it contributing to, in a meaningful way, to the kind of end experience you want to deliver?
Absolutely, to the guest satisfaction or delight.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a very, very good framework that you just presented there. And I think, just to summarize it, trust first, data second. I mean, so often this gets missed out, but in a very simple but very profound statement, if I can put it like that. And then, of course, that percolates to, at the heart of it. And then the next layer is all the structure and kind of processes you have around data ethics and consent, etc. And then lastly, how you collect, store, and use these data that you're then collecting, right? So that's the
Correct. For example, even access rights, right? So let's say you've given me the rights to store your data and you've given me the rights to use your data,
yeah.
which is great. But then to whom all am I making your data visible? Am I making it visible to every front office when you check in? And am I making all your data visible to every front office? So that's where a lot of governance and those pieces come in. Where if you're coming from a philosophy of saying it is about customer centricity, it is about protecting their privacy and the purpose of trust first, I think a lot of things kind of fall into place.
Absolutely. And I think that's a nice segue to the next kind of question I had. So when all of this, Vitika, seems so tightly controlled, right? That it and obviously emerges from a, like you said, a tacit understanding of the user, and having very strong ethics, etc. Right. So now, in a world that is moving so quickly and heavily towards AI, how do you see this playing out? So, firstly, of course, just touch upon AI and just the explosion and what it means for you right now in IHCL and for the hospitality industry in general. But then, if you could sort of in the latter half cover, how do you take all of this that you just said about depersonalization, meaningful experiences, but around a very rigorous framework of trust, right? So, how do you sort of keep that going? Would be great to sort of pick your brains on that.
So I think two parts to it. The first is in terms of what all are we using AI for today. So frankly, the roadmap is fairly exhaustive, and we are looking at using AI for a lot of things. And it's a journey. So beginning from a very casual conversation that you may have with our chatbot on our website or on our WhatsApp channels, going all the way to, in fact, something that we were speaking about as well, where can we do a voice POC?
Yeah.
So whether it's Gen AI or whether we are looking at agentic or whether we are looking at creatives, for example, we spoke about co-creating some time back. Now, obviously, when it's that mass level of co-creation, uh, there are going to be challenges which will have to be solved by AI only. So how do I, give you a creative as distinct from me, and you love going to beach resorts? So can I give you every creative? Can it be more beach property led? I'm a hills person. Can it be more mountain property led? So a lot of AI which we are looking at using in terms of personalized communication, um, omni-channel shifts. So you're talking to us on WhatsApp and you've come to on our website, or very live case that if you're trying to book something and unfortunately it's not going through, can I come and help you? That can I shift channels? So a lot of algos and rules in AI is being used for all of that. The second part on how do you preserve, frankly, it's actually not that difficult. And frankly, if you ask me, it's easier in an AI world than in a human world. Uh, you know, uh, Indian hotels and Taj have a legacy of 120 years. We have people in our system who have been there for 30 years, who take a deep sense of pride in serving the company that they do. And that pride very, very easily exudes and transforms into customer delight. So thankfully, for us, purpose, philosophy, and of course the Tata Group, all of these things come more easily. And of course, because we have people who've been there with us for long, long, long periods of time. But otherwise, if I was to, let's say, start a hotel company tomorrow,
Mhm.
I would tend to believe that it's easier for me to enforce trust as a practice, or privacy as a systemic structure
Yeah.
more easily than a human behavior. And therefore, I do believe that it's possible to operate in AI within the realms of privacy and trust.
But where it sort of, um, s- at least if you look at the experiences that have come out so far, some of these anecdotes, where it breaks is in the edge cases, right? Like by and large, in the regular flow of things, you're absolutely right. I think enforcing AI in a much more predictable way, far more easier. I agree with you, right? But when that discretion has to be exercised, that you have to be judicious in a specific edge cases when things go awry. Do you see that as being relevant, and how do you see that getting weaved into what you would attempt to do with AI?
Very relevant, but very solvable systemically. So I'll take a very, I love talking about examples, and I don't like to
Yeah.
take examples which are more academic. I like taking examples which are very near reality. So let's say, something as basic as database marketing. I want to do a cross sell offer to you. Every algo that we run has something called a confidence level associated. All of these edge cases usually operate at confidence levels which start dwindling. And that's when your system, if not your philosophy. So if philosophy was to, and that's why I'm saying sometimes it's easier to do systemic checks.
Yeah.
But if philosophy was to say, you would probably say, if I don't have a confidence level of, let's say, 90% and above, I don't want to disturb this customer.
Go.
But your edge cases usually, and of course, you will have edge cases of edge cases, or you'll have outliers within edge cases. But your edge cases usually land up lying in areas where the confidence levels start shaking a little bit.
Start shaking.
But
Yeah.
you still want to go ahead with it
Yeah.
because you believe that, even if X% convert, it's
Just that extra dollar, maybe. That's
exactly,
when the
absolutely. It's that
yeah, that's
extra
when the
buck
temptation
made.
starts coming. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got it. Got it. Got it. So that's a great point. So then, if what you're saying is that if you cut down the edge cases, that's the message, right? So cut it down.
Just as a very tactic and a very real example I was giving you, that if we want to make sure that we don't get into this edge space, the system does provide for a lot.
Got it. Got it. And so, going forward, if you look at the next maybe 12 to 18 months, and you sort of look at the sort of rapid paths that AI is taking, right? And if you were to fast forward, what do you think the world would look like for you as a marketer? And what's your message for other marketers to sort of stay grounded? I would love to understand that.
Subra, I can't tell you what world would look like me as an individual, like 5 days down the line. but but um, but I think one thing which we briefly touched upon is the power is moving into the hands of the consumer,
Mhm.
and brands like us are thrilled about it because we will see more purpose-driven brands. We will see more predominance of factors like trust, transparency.
Yeah.
We will see a great premium being attached to authenticity, acceptance of mistakes, even if they're made. We will see a lot of co-creation. We will so when we look at all these trends as a marketer, uh, uh, a lot of areas like sustainability, diversity, inclusion. These are becoming parameters where consumers are giving a lot of weightage to brands that favor these.
Yeah.
And needless to say, brands and marketing are two sides of the same coin. So if we so that's one big trend, if I was to say, that I'm seeing, where
Yeah.
purpose-driven brands and authentic marketing will rule the roost. The second part of it is, of course, brands and marketers who are able to solve that confluence that I spoke about of left and right,
Yeah.
where and it's extremely it's rare. I think there are very few.
Hard. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
It's very hard. It's a science and an art. There are very few human beings, forget marketers, who are able to shift from how a technical system to work on how emotively the messaging would be interpreted by a consumer. Um, but yes, that is the need of the hour, where you need to have tech intelligence along with aesthetic intelligence, along with a lot of other things put together.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if the my second piece for or second advice to marketers would be that if you can, please try and brush up your skills on whichever of the two sides you lack.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, one last question I did want to ask you. I know you're so super passionate about diversity. You champion women's causes and mentor a lot of women professionally as well. Do you worry that in the AI world that we're headed towards, there isn't enough representation yet of women? And how do you think this gap could be bridged, if at all? I would love to understand your perspective on this. It's a slight tangent from marketing and all that we've spoken, but nevertheless, I think it's a super, super important topic today.
Actually, I think that the world we are entering, with its complexity, agility, ability to jump ships, multitask with an element of mindfulness, and of course, AI and tech being one manifestation of all of the above. Um, I do believe that there'll be a lot of space for women. Uh, there is a certain sense of inherent, um, what would be the right word? I need to use the right word here. But there is a certain set of very feminine skills that they bring.
Mhm.
And these are not skills, but these are inherent to them as a person.
Yeah.
And if they're able to, where they probably lack is exposure, education, access to information. So if they're able to bridge that gap, my gut feel is they will probably land a great.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think that's a great note to end the podcast on, Vitika. This was such an insightful conversation. For anybody listening, there are a lot of frameworks that I'm sure they can take away, both specific to hospitality as well as broadly from a marketing perspective. So thank you so much, Vitika. Really appreciate it.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Subra. Lovely speaking to you.